Hey y'all, welcome everybody. This is my first solo live stream, so the girl's a little nervous today. That's okay. It's okay. Where are my introverts at? This is totally outside of my comfort zone, but I felt called to come live today and yeah, see what y'all are talking about in the chat. I do see one comment. Hi Kelly. I'm gonna get to your comment in just one second. But I felt called to come on here, go live, and to share some tips and resources if you're looking to put together an exit plan to exit a toxic job. I am a toxic job survivor, as Dr. Kamani says on her YouTube channel. I'm about 3 months out from my toxic job, and I'm in Mexico. I'm in Mexico doing freelance work, contract work, and I got certified through Digital Nomad Kit, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But that allowed me to have the skills to transition to an online business and utilize my skill set in that way. So yeah, I'm so glad to everyone who's watching. Thank you. Oh, thanks, The Dark Knight. Thank you. Okay, I will get to Kelly's comment. Yes. Marissa, can you talk about being purposely unemployable? It's okay in the times we are in. It's a book written by Dr. Cynthia Simmons, and she hit on a relevant topic concerning leaving jobs. I have not heard about that book, but I will check that out. I will add that to my reading list. Thank you so much for mentioning that. Yeah, purposely unemployable. That is a very interesting title. And yeah, I feel like a lot of us are coming to that point. We're experiencing mistreatment in jobs over and over because this is not my first toxic job, and I'm sure a lot of y'all can relate to that. You get to a point where you're like, okay, I can't do this anymore. So I completely relate to that, and thank you for sharing that book title with us. Oh, thank you so much. Everyone's saying congratulations. Hi, Jessica. Thank you for joining. Okay, let's get into the tips and resources. So I have a list here. So the first thing I want to start with that was really helpful for me transitioning out of a toxic job was therapy or self-discovery, because I do want to always put the caveat that therapy is not for everyone. Therapy is a great resource, and especially if you don't have the right therapist, sometimes it can be detrimental to your healing journey. And I do want to be real about that. But there are resources to find great therapists. Loveland Foundation is one of them, and I can put that in the chat as well. Therapy for Black Girls is another amazing resource to find a Black therapist, someone who gets what you're going through and is not looking at you like, what are you talking about? Because I have been there too. With someone who didn't understand my experience living in the world as a Black woman, that's very important as a therapist. Yeah, I see a comment here. I'm terrified to go back to a corporate setting. Yes, MC the speaker. I can definitely relate to that. That's why I'm kind of doing like freelance contract work at the moment, giving myself a break from the corporate environment. I don't know if I'll ever go back because it is traumatizing. And once you've been through a situation like that, you know, it's re-traumatizing. Even if the corporate setting is not toxic, which, you know, please let me know if that exists. But even if it's not toxic, you still have those re-traumatizing feelings come up when you step into that. So I completely relate to that. Alicia, hey, happy Tuesday. Wonderful to see you here. Thank you so much. Alicia is such a wonderful supporter and friend. Thank you. The dark date. Yep, some therapists are just there to make you feel good without really helping you face problems. True. Very true. Very true. And I feel like, especially with social media, a lot of people have labeled themselves therapists and are giving out advice and stuff like that. So it just kind of muddies the water even more. So you're like, you don't know who to go to. But something I always want to emphasize is that you have the tools within you. You have the tools within you to begin healing at any time. And healing does not have to be hard. Healing can look like seeking out joy, seeking out, you know, things that you used to do for fun that kind of got stamped out of us, right? As we age, as we get older, a lot of these things we're told we can't do anymore. We're told we have to conform and all these things. So it's really getting back to yourself. So you always have that inside you. You come here healed, right? And then gradually with, living and being told messages and your worth being questioned, all that stuff, you start to question yourself. So you always have that within you. All right, getting back to my list, you have to tell people what you're going through. And I want to emphasize trusted people. Please don't tell people who you don't trust, who you've seen exhibit a pattern of betraying you, of backstabbing you, of telling, important details to people in authoritative positions at your job. It's very important to be selective in who you tell that to. But I'm building this community here. My inbox is always open. hello@mpricemsw.com. But yeah, a trusted community of people who are interested in seeing you thrive and flourish and be in an environment that supports your well-being and don't want you to just stay miserable with them, because there are people like that out there, unfortunately. And my next point, keep a record of what's going on. So this can be helpful if you're looking to pursue a severance agreement, which I'll touch on in a second, or if you're just looking to stop self-gaslighting, because that is something with toxic jobs, right? We go through these events, and then because no one speaks up and we're going through this treatment and we feel that we're being mistreated, we know it, but then we start to question, did this really happen? Did this really happen this way? And that kind of gets you into a whole, rabbit hole cycle. So being able to take voice notes as a mistreatment is happening, whether you have to go in a conference room, if you work from home, taking out your personal devices, that's very important, and recording what's happening to you, keeping a journal just to document the mistreatment, so that when you start to question yourself, you can go back and say, yeah, I was actually being mistreated, and no, this person actually did say that to me. I'm not making that up. And my next point is write out your fears. So Dr. Kamani has a great digital fillable workbook called Welcome to Your Queendom that I actually filled out as I was transitioning out of my job and realizing that I didn't have to stay there anymore, because that's another thing, right? It becomes all consuming and you think that you don't have other options, but there are so many options that exist. So having a resource like that was so beneficial. I'm going to see if I can link that in the chat right here. But yes, it's called Welcome to Your Queendom. Would highly recommend. Of course, I had the link up and now it's somewhere. Okay, I'll get back. Oh, there it is. Okay. And it's a digital fillable workbook, so you don't have to print it out. You can just type in as things come up, as you have the energy to, journal and talk more about your feelings. It's a great resource that I would recommend. Yes, everything you're saying, I can relate. I worked in corporate law for 5 years. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's corporate environments are tough, and they're definitely positively not made for Black women, for Black people, for Black women, like at all. And our very presence is viewed as a threat, right? That's real. And it's hard. It's hard to navigate that every day, especially when you feel like you don't have other options. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, second point. You have to come to the understanding that you deserve better. You don't deserve to be mistreated. So this involves dissolving the trauma bond that we often have with our employers that mistreat us, right? So a trauma bond is you bonding with someone who is harming you. And this is a psychological term. But this is real, and we see this in narcissistic abuse, right? You're bonded to someone who is questioning your worth, who is devaluing you, and you feel that you don't have other options. You feel that this is it. And you start to believe what they tell you. You start to believe that you're doing too much when you're not. You're being yourself, right? And that's the kind of the weird thing, is that we're brought into these roles to showcase our expertise, to lean into our skill sets, to offer new ideas, and then we're undervalued. And then we're told we're doing too much. And it's like, it's confusing, right? Because it's like, that's the whole reason that you brought me into this. So it's breaking that trauma bond with the person who is harming you, the entity that's harming you, and really leaning into acceptance, radical acceptance that the harm that you're experiencing is not your fault and you deserve better. And there was a time before you were in this environment. I think that's very important because it can feel like this is it, this is the only option. And it's not, because there was a time before you were in this organization, in this role, and you were fine. So there is an option. There is always an option out. I always want to emphasize that. And also saying no to colonial servitude. This is a point I actually got from Doctora Rocio Rosales Mesa, and I'm actually in her program right now on decolonizing yourself and learning, about the impacts of colonization on the way that the world operates now, on the things that we experience. And this is something she always emphasizes. You have to learn to say no to colonial servitude, to say no to things that don't serve you, to say no to taking on extra projects that you're not being paid for. And you have the power to say no. You do, which is something that we're not often told, right? Thank you, Alicia. We do have the power to say no to things that don't feel right. We don't have to keep saying yes. That's something that I have really had to learn over the past year or so. So you do have the power to do that. The next point I want to touch on is money. So this is something that was really terrifying to me, I'll be honest, in leaving my job. And some questions I have here. Could you leave at a time around when you get your bonus, when you get your tax refund? Even if that's planning for the next year ahead, that means you have a plan in place. You have an exit plan in place. Could you start an exit fund? So this might look like starting a high yield savings account. I have one with Capital One. But having a set aside account, right, where you can put in contributions no matter how small, having that lets you know that you're already in process. You're moving towards something. And I think that's very powerful. Could you secure another job before you leave? So this might look like updating your resume, right? I follow the Resume Addict, I think, on Instagram, and she always has great tips that she shares. And I'll put that in the comments. Hi, Mara. Oh, that's the one. Exit fund sounds good. Yes. And I will put this. Hey, Lavendula. Wonderful to see you here. Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, so could you leave? Could you leave and secure another job before you leave? Now, that could look like taking a vacation in between you starting a new job, because you do need time to rest and heal from what you've just experienced. But you do have the power to do that. You can update your resume. That is one of the hurdles that I felt was impossible for me to get over, was updating my resume. And just me sitting down for a few nights and just downloading like a free template, right? That's applicant tracking system friendly, because that's the new way that a lot of employers will review your resume. They'll send it through like a process. It will determine if you even get an interview, if the hiring manager even sees you. It has to be ATS friendly. But me just sitting down, dedicating time to do that, let me know that I was already in process of leaving. So these small steps really give you the confidence to keep going and proving to yourself that you don't deserve this and that you do have options and there is a way out. And the last point is, could you start an online business or a side hustle while you're still there? Build up a fund and then exit. So I will link my email list sign up in the bio. I'm actually putting together a free webinar called Start Your Online Business from Scratch. under my company, Free Black Women Virtual Solutions, because I see the freedom that exists in online businesses, especially for Black women looking to exit toxic jobs. So I will add that in the description once I upload this video. Alicia, yeah. I would love to learn more about the Decolonizing Program, by the way. That sounds amazing. Yes, absolutely. It has been amazing. It has. So it is a community of Black and Brown women around the world, globally, unlearning colonial servitude. So it's pretty heavy work, actually, because, this goes very deep. This is conditioning that's been going on since childhood, right? Since I've been conscious. But she does give us a pathway. It makes us understand that all of what we see is due to colonization, enslavement, land theft, right? This is the remnants of what we're dealing with today is because of that. So it's been very powerful. Laura. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I completely know that feeling. And I'm glad you're here too. I'm so glad to see you. Okay, time off. Next point. Yes, take time to rest. So even if it's time between jobs that you can schedule before you start your new job, you need time to rest. You need time to heal. And also the recognition that you may still be triggered when you step into a new work environment, especially if it looks similar to the one that you left. And I'm hoping that you don't deal with the same things that you did at the toxic job you left. But that takes a while. It takes a while to unlearn, right? It takes a while to shed that. It can be years. I'm in the beginning process of me shedding that. So give yourself time, give yourself space. You went through a traumatic event. Being traumatized in the work environment is not a small thing. It's not, especially in the US, because we spend so much of our lives at work. So you're being traumatized for the majority of your life when you look at it like that. So give yourself time. Also, take a leave of absence if you can. Look in your employee handbook to see what options exist for you. I know this was something that I did. So if you can take FMLA, and the thing that irritates me about FMLA is it's unpaid. This is what I ended up taking. And I actually had to dip into my 401k savings at a previous employer and take the early withdrawal penalty, which I hated. That's a whole nother conversation for the policy failures of the US. But yeah, see if you can take short-term or long-term disability. That may be an option for you. I have heard from other Black women that you should be prepared to seek legal counsel. And I know that that's a whole nother can of worms, right? Because legal counsel can be traumatizing too. But I did apply for short-term disability and I had my claim and appeal denied. So that's real life. I'm hoping that wouldn't happen to you, but that is always a possibility. And I do want to share that and be transparent about that. And if your employer offers a paid sabbatical, congratulations, take advantage of it. Take advantage of everything that is offered to you. You deserve it. These are benefits available to you. I know sometimes there's that hesitation to even take advantage of stuff that's for you. But do that. Do that. You deserve it. Lavendula, yeah, I'm right there, dealing with the triggers. Yep. And I will say, even in a contract role, I'm still hyper vigilant. I'm still waiting for the shoe to drop. I'm like, okay, now when's the toxicity going to start? So that's, in the healing process too, is really taking time, journaling, giving yourself space, and really telling yourself that you went through a traumatic experience. Someone questioning your worth is not a small thing. Someone talking over you is not a small thing. These are all intended to break your confidence. And the fact that you're still going is a testament that they didn't win. They thought they won, but you're still here and you're still going. So they didn't, they lost. Okay, the next point I want to make. HR is not your friend. And this is something S. Anne Marie Archer says all the time on her channel, the anti-HR HR lady. So they're not to be trusted. Please have a plan before you go to them. I know that I actually reached out to HR when I was given an additional role and not being paid to do that role. And I think that put me on some type of list, I feel like, because me trying to apply for additional jobs within the company, I was immediately denied. But that's just my theory. So have a plan before you go to them. If this means, like I was talking about earlier, if you are looking to build a case to get a severance agreement, have your documentation plan, have a plan to go to them. Don't just go to them seeking support, please, because they're actually there to protect the company, not you. And that's something I've had to learn as well. I didn't know that. All right. And next steps. So this was so important. A skills assessment. A lot of times when we're in a toxic job, we feel like we don't have any skills anymore. Because the level of breaking down your self-esteem, constantly questioning you, talking over you, making you seem like you don't know what you're talking about, that does have a real effect to the point where we feel like we don't even have any skills anymore. But you do. There was a reason you're in that job. There's a reason they sought you out. You can always pivot to another job. Write down the things that you do well. Write down the things that people ask you to do, that people ask for your input on, that you have a certification in, that you have a degree in. I guarantee you have so many. As Black women, we have so many skills, so many skills. And then trust in your ability to pivot. Pivot from that environment, pivot into another job if that's what you want to do, pivot into online entrepreneurship. You have so many options, and then get excited for those options, because this is going to be part of your story. This is going to be part of your victory story. You're going to be telling this story one day of look what I overcame. They thought they tried to break me. They tried to. They lost that. So yes, get excited for your next step, because this is just one chapter in your life story, and you do have options. You do. Having doula. Ooh, I learned that. Yes, me too. Yep, I definitely learned that the hard way, that HR is not there to protect you. HR is there to protect the company at all times. And they will start building a case on you, as I have heard, if you do raise any concerns. So it's to that level of you should not trust them. You should not. Yeah, speaking facts. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's a dark night. It reminds me when I was working for Yelp, they straight up gaslight everybody who works there. This is brainwashing to coerce you and saying if you try to quit, they straight up will tell you. You won't make it out there if you can't make it here. Oh, wow. Woo. Wow. I mean, some of the tactics that I have seen, I was actually brought back to my time in Black studies, reading narratives of people who were enslaved. That is how deep this is. The level of power, control, toxicity, wanting to have control over people's movements, and psychological abuse. It goes very deep. It really does. Samri Bliss, yes. I was put on a PIP for 3 months after I got back from vacation. I'm sorry. And for those of y'all who don't know, PIP is a performance improvement plan, I believe, which is another way that I've heard from S. Anne Marie Archer, actually. That's kind of a sign that they're trying to get rid of you. So these tactics are very slimy. They're very undercover, and they're intended to be that way, right? Because if they do it too out in the open, then it's too obvious. So they kind of got to do it undercover, little by little, chipping away at your self-esteem, making you an example right in front of other people, which is a tactic of enslavers. So these things go very deep. Yeah. Hi, Marilyn. Good evening. Jasmine, I really hate the mind games. Yeah, it's real. It's real. And so I want you to know, if you're experiencing this, you're not alone, because it can feel so isolating when you're going through it. And that's another tactic of an abuser, is to make you feel isolated. But us sharing our stories like this openly and supporting each other through this is resistance to whatever they're trying to do. I don't know what they're trying to do. Break our self-esteem to control us, right? That's really the end game. But us having spaces like this, I think, are so important to bring transparency, to let other people know that you're not alone. And so many of us have been through this, which is so disgusting and unfortunate, but it's true. The Dark Knight says, if y'all ever get a job where you have to recite and memorize a script every day, run far away. It's part of the brainwashing. That's a good point. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. A lot of this stuff is horrible, and I don't have any words. The more I learn, the more I hear from people. This is so deep. The mistreatment in the workplace. And because, like I said, we spend so much of our lives at work in the US. What a great place in the eyes of an abuser to seek out people to abuse. And especially if you view people as having less power than you, you're going to take advantage of that. But they don't. They don't have that power over us. That is a mirage, right? Because we always have the power to leave. We have the power to leave. We don't have to accept mistreatment. We have options. We have options. You helped me break the conditioning too. Yes. Yes. Me too. Alicia has been so pivotal in me healing from depression from being at a toxic job. Finding her videos, joining her community for Black women really was a breath of fresh air in my life that really allowed me to lean into my gifts again. So thank you, Alicia. You have impacted so many of our lives. Lydia, hey Lydia, yeah. I was really questioning my sanity at my last job, going in there defeated every day. But of course, I was the only Black woman. Hearing these similar stories lets me know I didn't imagine it. You didn't. You absolutely did not. No. And that's part of the trap of self-gaslighting, right? So another person, an external party, will gaslight us, will make us try to, deny our reality, and then we'll internalize that and we'll start doing it to ourselves. That's when it becomes dangerous, because then you're disconnected from your core. You're disconnected from your center. When you start to doubt what you're feeling and what you're seeing, that's when things can go awry. Because you're lost and you're confused, And so that's very real. I know that I experienced that. And it's getting back to trusting yourself. Slowly but surely, keeping a record of the mistreatment. And therapy was very beneficial for me in connecting the mistreatment I was experiencing in the workplace to childhood. You start to see those patterns of things that were normalized that now you think you have to accept. You don't. You don't have to accept them. The thing about coming into adulthood, right, is you have agency. You have agency that you didn't have necessarily as a child. And you don't have to stay around and be mistreated anymore because you have so many options. Oh, absolutely, friend. Absolutely. And I truly mean that. Sincerely. Lydia, yeah, I reported consistent racism around me, and my direct supervisor sent me to HR. Whew. I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. Whew. And, HR is often used as a weapon. It's used as a weapon against us. And whether it's, reporting us to HR for raising legitimate concerns or going to HR behind our back to try to put us on a performance improvement plan, HR really acts as the overseer a lot of times. And I hate that. That's really disgusting. Jessica, is there any advice you would give to Black women about to join the workforce, specifically healthcare? What should we be aware of? What are green flags, red flags? How to balance work and play? Oh my God, that's a great question. Let's see. So I feel like in going into an interview process, understand that you're also interviewing the employer as well as them interviewing you. You have the power to say no to any opportunity that doesn't feel right to you. I know coming out of college, especially as a first generation college student, I felt a lot of pressure to say yes to the first thing that came my way. As much as you can resist that pressure and keep your focus on the options that you have, the many options, the many avenues you have, that desperation hopefully won't get in the way of you seeing things clearly and really tapping into your intuition. How does this feel? How are the people treating me in the interview? Because I know that I've had bad interviews and then I've accepted the job and then I've been mistreated in the job. Well, they showed me in the interview, but I denied my intuition, right? That's part of being conditioned in this society. As a Black woman, we're taught to deny our intuition a lot. I know my intuition is very powerful. So me denying it, I know that I'm getting into trouble at the end of the day. So really tapping into, how does this environment feel? How do you feel about it? Do they have statements in place, even though we know that the statements sometimes they don't act on them? So are there other stories of people who have worked there that you can access? I know there are some job boards where people will share their real life experience unedited of working at a place. I think that's very important to have that. Red flags. Red flags would be, I know a term I've heard in interviews is wearing multiple hats. And as someone who was asked to take on an additional position without being paid for that position, I feel that that's something that Black women are asked to do a lot, is to take on multiple roles. So that phrase always kind of sends up red flags for me, right? Multiple hats, multiple roles, fast pace, anything that kind of seems stressful is always a red flag to me. How to balance work and play. I think to understand that work is not the center of your life, even though we're constantly fed that message. Your life is your life. And you were put here to live, right? You were put here to experience Earth, to experience people, and work is but a part of life. Work is a source of income. And I think that is just what I'm learning now, right? Work is a way to pay your bills. In this capitalistic system, work is a way to pay your bills. But work is not the center of your life. Even though people try to make it, it's not. I hope that was helpful. I hope I answered your question. If you have any other questions, please drop them. If I didn't answer that, let me know, because I will try to. Yes, Glassdoor. Glassdoor is a great resource, yeah, to look at those unfiltered reviews to see what people are actually saying about the place that you're thinking about working. Because their statements will only say so much. The people in the interview will only say so much, but if you have those unfiltered reviews of a company, because again, you're also interviewing them, that can be so helpful in seeing what people have actually experienced. Yes. Red flag must, oh, yes. This is a huge red flag. Must have thick skin. Yes. Yes. Because that right there lets you know that you're going to be prepared for, or you're supposed to be prepared for people to throw what, insults at you at work? No, absolutely not. One of the biggest red flags in the training or the interview, they talk bad about unions. Run as far away as you can if they badmouth unions. Good piece of advice. Yep. Yep. Okay, y'all. I had no idea how long this live was going to go. This is my first solo live, so learning as I go. But I want to thank y'all so much for being here. Lighting up the chat. Thank you so much for supporting me. And if you have a YouTube channel, please drop it in the chat because I love to look at other people's YouTube channels and support them as well. But yeah, I guess I wanted to end with you deserve better. You deserve better if you're at a toxic job. And the options in front of you are vast, even if you can't see it right now. Because when you're in the thick of it, right, sometimes it feels like you don't have any options. But you always have options. And if you need support with those options, I'm here. You can always send me an email, hello@mprice.msw.com. But think about, you can get another job. That's a possibility. You can work as a contractor. You don't have to work a full-time role anymore if you don't want to. You can start a business. You can start an online business, have location independence. You can move. You can move. You're not a tree. You can move. And you have options. So to leave y'all with that. Lydia. Yes, and I do have a live coming up with Lydia next week, which I will advertise here in a few days. So I'm looking forward to that too. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, y'all. I hope y'all have a great evening. And thank you again for being here. Bye-bye.